Hi, I'm Trish Connor Cato. Welcome to Microsoft Project 2019 Beginner. This video is for users who are new to project or those who've had no formal training and are looking for insights on how to successfully create and manage project plan files. Microsoft Project is a powerful scheduling tool used to track tasks, resources, and costs. It also provides powerful and interactive reporting tools used through each stage of a project, which are covered in the advanced video. We start with the basics, exploring the user interface and efficient ways to navigate. We have a brief review of project management concepts. Even though project is not only used by project managers, the way that you work in the application has a correlation to project management phases. We move on to creating a project plan file and defining it for our project. We'll then dive into creating our task list and organizing it. Then we will add resources to our plan file and assign them to tasks. Lastly, we will finalize our project plan. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. If you want to earn certificates and digital badges, please become a member of our Patreon. The link is in our video description. If you have any questions you want answered by one of our instructors, please join our off-site community. The link is in the description as well. As always, if this course has exercise files, you'll find them in the video description below. Our first lesson is getting started with Microsoft Project. We'll figure out what exactly Microsoft Project does, and then we'll explore and navigate its environment. We'll identify key project management concepts, specifically the phases of project management, as they correlate to how you'll be working in your project plan files. Microsoft Project is a very powerful scheduling tool, and it's used to track tasks, resources, and costs, or any combination of the three. It also has a reporting interface with highly interactive reporting tools. Project is not only used by project managers, but by anyone in a role that requires scheduling and tracking, and it is in use worldwide to varying degrees. I'm going to go ahead and launch Microsoft Project now. I'm going to launch it from my Windows taskbar so that we can explore its interface. So when I get into Project, I'm going to go ahead and click on Blank Project. So it takes me into the project interface. You'll notice, just like the other Office programs, Project has a title bar. It also has the Microsoft ribbon interface. And notice the tabs on the ribbon in Project. They're project related. So you have a task tab. Anytime you're working with tasks and you need to do something, you're more than likely to find the commands on that tab. The same is true for the resource tab. When you start working with resources, you'll be using this tab. It also has a report tab, project tab, view tab, help. We have a contextual tab here, the Gantt chart format tab. The only reason that tab is on the ribbon is because the default view in Microsoft Project is Gantt chart with timeline. So when you go into Project, it's in Gantt chart with timeline view, and you get the formatting tools for your Gantt chart portion of the screen. Like in other Microsoft programs, you can access help by using the Tell Me What You Want to Do pop-up. You can also use the Help tab on the ribbon to get help. So you have the ribbon. You can double-click any ribbon tab to collapse it to gain more working space, and double-click to display it again. Now you also have a quick access toolbar in Project. Mine just happens to be showing below the ribbon, and I'm going to click the arrow next to it and tell it to show above the ribbon. Underneath the ribbon, you have the timeline. Later on in the course, you'll learn how to add tasks to the timeline as it can be used as a high-level reporting tool as well as give you a quick at a glance on what's going on with your project. Underneath the timeline, you have your Gantt chart view. The Gantt chart is a split screen view. It has a table known as the entry table on the left side. And then you have the area where your Gantt chart will display on the right side. To the left of the entry table, you have a view indicator. Just like any other Microsoft project has a lot of different ways of doing the same thing. So the view indicator not only tells you the current view that you're in, but it's also used to change to different views, of which project has many. So you can access different views by right-clicking on the view indicator, and you'll see other views that you can use in Microsoft Project. Underneath your entry table and all the way across the bottom of your screen, you have a status bar. It's telling me that I'm in ready mode and that new tasks would be manually scheduled. On the right side of the status bar, you have a series of view buttons, and that's just like presets. So a shortcut from going to the view menu, my arrow's going the wrong way, but you can use the view buttons to the right side of the status bar to switch to differing project views as necessary. And to the right of that, you have a zoom slider. Now, a note of caution about the zoom slider in project. In this particular view, it doesn't work to zoom your text so that it's larger so you can see it. It actually changes the time scale of what's displaying. And once we open a project plan file, I'll show you how that works, especially in this view. So your time scale resides above your Gantt chart. Right now, my time scale is on days. I'm seeing every day of every week. You'll see other project views as we advance in the course. Even though this is not a course on project management, we need to know about the project management phases as they correlate to how you will be working in a project plan file. And by the way, this slide deck is in the video description for your future reference. So the first project management phase is the conception and initiation phase. This phase has no correlation to Microsoft Project. This is before you even start about building a plan file. So this is where the stakeholders and the people who will be working on the project will determine the purpose of the project, whether it can be done, and what would be needed for a successful completion. Again, that work is not captured in Microsoft Project. Microsoft Project starts with the definition and planning phase. So this is where you're working on the scope of the project and the budget. You're getting your tasks organized into a work breakdown structure, which you'll learn about in this course. And you're starting to perform some risk management techniques. Another phase that's captured in Microsoft Project is the launch and execution phase. So once your project is started and work is happening, you're going to be checking the status of your project, tracking and updating tasks, probably doing some resource assignments and reassignments, and working on their schedules, and also starting to report on the status of the project to stakeholders and other interested parties. The performance and control phase of project management is also carried out in Microsoft Project, where we'll see if the objectives are on track and the work that is being completed, is it quality in terms of the deliverables. We'll also be doing effort and cost tracking and monitoring the performance overall of the project. So The middle three phases have a direct correlation with how you're going to work in Microsoft Project. The closing phase as well, the last phase, Project Close, you'll be using Microsoft Project for that as well in terms of reporting and just going back through things that you may have had to change, resource reassignments, moving tasks around to conduct your project post-mortem for lessons learned. Lesson 2 is defining a project. We've already created a new project plan file when we clicked on blank project before we did our tour of the environment. So we're going to use that blank project to define a project and assign a project calendar to it in this lesson. In project, when you define a project, you're setting its start date, and you're also creating a project calendar if necessary and assigning it to your project plan file. So we're going to start by setting the project start date. You're going to go to the Project tab on the ribbon, and in the Properties group, you'll see a series of icons. And these are icons that you use when you want to do something to your overall project. So one of the most important icons in this Properties group is the Project Information icon. When you're managing your project plan file, you'll be using that icon a lot. And that's why I've added it to my Quick Access toolbar, which I've moved above my ribbon. And if you want to add it to your Quick Access toolbar, all you have to do is right-click on the Project Information icon on your ribbon, and you'll see your top choice is Add to Quick Access Toolbar. Mine is dimmed out because it's already up there. In any case, I'm going to go up to my Quick Access Toolbar and click on Project Information. And you'll notice that it defaults to the project start date and the finish date is dimmed out. 99% of the times, I schedule my projects by their start date. When you use the finish date to schedule your projects, it has a default constraint that all tasks will begin as late as possible. So even if a task could begin earlier in your plan, it will wait to the last possible minute for it to be scheduled to begin. So we're going to put in a start date. I'm going to just do the drop down next to start date, and I'm going to navigate to November. And I'm going to say this project is going to start on November 1st of this year. When you schedule your task, project will be able to, once you outline your task, it will be able to give you the estimated finish date. Right now, you'll notice that underneath where it says schedule from project start date, it says all tasks begin as soon as possible, which is the constraint when you're scheduling from the start date. So we gave it our start date. We're going to go ahead and click OK to close the project information box. Now I want to direct your attention to the Gantt chart portion of your screen. And you'll see a dashed line going down, and that line represents the start date of your project. The next step in defining a project is creating a project calendar. Project comes with 3 built-in calendars. Typically, you don't use them, but you might make a copy of one to create your own calendar. Still on the Project tab of the ribbon in the Properties group, go ahead and click on the Change Working Time button. At the top, it says For Calendar, Standard Project Calendar. Do the drop down next to that so we can discuss the 3 built-in calendars. You have your Standard Project Calendar, which represents a work day of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, with an hour break for lunch. Your Night Shift Calendar accommodates people that may work during the night hours, and it's the same as the Standard Project Calendar, except it's for night with an hour break. Project also has a 24-hour calendar. So if you work somewhere where on this project there's equipment that might be running 24 hours a day, you can put that equipment on a 24-hour calendar. Now, I mentioned that we don't really use the project calendars. We're going to create our own. So we're going to leave the drop down on standard project calendar. And to the right of that, you're going to click on the Create New Calendar button. And it gives it a name, Copy of Standard. And we're going to change that to Remodel Project. We're going to be creating a project plan for a basic remodeling project, office remodeling project. And we want to base our calendar off of a copy of the standard calendar. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And now what we need to do is we need to put any exceptions, any time off on our calendar. So this is not like Outlook where you can import holidays into a calendar. You actually have to put them on the calendar. Now, the good news here is that right now this calendar will only be available to this project plan file. But later in the course, you'll learn how you can make the project calendar available to other project plan files, so that if you have a lot of exceptions like days off that you need to put on the calendar, you truly only have to do it once. And that topic is covered in the Advanced Project 2019 course. So for right now, we're just going to put a few exceptions on this calendar. We're going to add Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving as exception days to our calendar. Notice at the top, it now says for calendar remodel project, which is the calendar we're creating. So the little mini calendar up top, if you use the scroll arrows, it will scroll you up and down through the months. I'm going to do the down arrow to scroll to November. And I am going to click on November 25th of this year, which is Thanksgiving Day. In the exceptions box at the bottom in the name, I'm going to type Thanksgiving Day. And I'm going to press the Tab key on my keyboard so it fills in the start and the finish dates of that holiday. On the mini calendar up top, after clicking in the second name box, I'm going to click on the 26th of November. And I'm going to just type in the name box day after Thanksgiving. And I'm going to press Tab to get its start and finish dates in there at the same time. So now that I have the Thanksgiving holidays in, I want to make them recurring so I don't have to update the calendar every year. So I'm going to click on Thanksgiving Day in the exceptions grid. And over to the right, I'm going to click on the Details button. So underneath Recurrence Pattern, I'm going to select Yearly. And underneath the pattern, I'm going to select the fourth Thursday of November. Thanksgiving always occurs on the fourth Thursday of November. Toward the bottom of the screen in the range of occurrence section, I usually end by some date way in the future. So I'm going to do the option button in front of end by. And I'm going to just change the year there to the year of 2050. And I'm going to click OK. I'm going to do the same thing to make the day after Thanksgiving recurring. So I'm going to select it in the name column, go over to Details, select the Yearly option button, do the fourth Friday of November option button, and under range of occurrence, make it end by the year 2050. And that way you won't have to worry about it. If we use this calendar on other projects, We won't have to go in and change the day for Thanksgiving and the day after every year. The other thing I want to point out in this screen, so I'm going to just click on the November 25th date. You'll notice that November 25th and the 26th have that dashed underline underneath them, and they have like a bluish shading. So the legend on the left will let you know that it's an exception day. And what that means in project, once we attach this calendar to our project, it means that no work will be scheduled on exception days. Go ahead and click OK. And the other thing that you need to know is the calendars in project, even the one that we created based off of the standard calendar, ignores Saturdays and Sundays. So no work will ever be scheduled on a Saturday and Sunday unless you override the system and tell it to do so at a task level. The last thing we're going to do right now is save our file, and then I'll show you how to attach the calendar to your project plan file. So go ahead and do save. And I'm going to put it in my working directory that I created for this course, which is on my desktop. Let me just navigate there. And I have my Project 2019 beginner file folder. And I'm going to name this Learnit Remodel Project. And save. Now, the last step in defining your project plan file is attaching the calendar we created to this project plan. Notice that your title bar has updated. Since we saved the project, it now has the name of the project in the title bar. And we're going to go back to our project information dialog box, which we put on the quick access toolbar to attach the calendar to this plan file. So notice on the right side, it uses the default standard calendar in a project plan if you don't change it. So now that we created our own calendar that has the Thanksgiving and day after exceptions on it, we want to use that calendar for this project plan. Do the drop down next to standard and you'll see your remodel project on the list. Go ahead and select it and click OK. So now our project will not schedule any work on Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. Go ahead and save your file again. Lesson 3 is creating and organizing project tasks. We're going to add tasks to our project plan file that we've already created. Along the way, we're going to import tasks from other programs, specifically from an Excel file that's in the video description called Finishing Phase Tasks. If you'd like to pause this video, grab that file and put it in your working directory, that would be great. After we get our task list together, we'll create a work breakdown structure, also known as WBS, where we will organize our tasks in a hierarchical order. We'll define the relationships between tasks and talk about what that means. And we'll end this lesson by scheduling our tasks. There are two different modes in Microsoft Project for when you're entering tasks. Mine is defaulted to manually scheduled, which means that I'm controlling the task schedule in terms of its duration, start, and finish dates. And that's why down in my task bar, my status bar rather, it says new tasks are manually scheduled. When I'm manually scheduling my tasks, that's when I'm setting up my project plan file. Typically, the project hasn't started yet. Work on the project hasn't started yet. And my task list may not necessarily be complete. I might need to modify it. There might be information that I don't have, like the specific duration of a particular task. So at this point, I'm going to leave it on manually scheduled. And once our task list is complete and organized, We're going to switch it to automatically scheduled, which is what you'll see if you click on that new task icon in the status bar. So auto scheduled means everything is going to be controlled by Microsoft Project. So after getting my task list as complete as I can get it before work starts on the project, I'm going to switch it to auto scheduled and let Project do its job. For right now, if yours is on auto scheduled, click on manually scheduled so it changes the mode. And we're going to click in the first task name cell in your entry table on the left side of the screen. Very similar to an Excel layout over there, that entry table. And we're going to start typing in our task names. So the first task that we're going to type in, this is a simple office remodel project. We're going to type in remove furniture. And as you're working on task names, they should be short noun-verb combinations like remove furniture. Once you press enter after typing that in, you'll see that it has no duration, start, or finish dates, and we're going to change that. We're going to say the remove furniture task. In the duration field, we're going to type the number 4. It's going to be 4 days. You don't have to type days because it defaults to days. If you did want to type days, you don't have to type the full word. You could just type the letter D. But it defaults to days, so it's not necessary. You'll notice a few things on your screen. First, notice the push pin with the question mark in the task mode column. That represents a manually scheduled task. Also notice that the duration of the task shows up on your Gantt chart as a bar. And we set the project start date as November 1st of this year. So that's where your dashed line is showing November 1st. It's starting that task on the start date of the project at this point. And you'll see when we switch to auto scheduled how all of this will change. But for right now, we're good. We have our first task in. Underneath remove furniture, you're going to type knock out middle wall. And you're going to give that a duration of 1. And this time I use my tab key to go over to the duration field. I typed in a 1 and I'm going to press enter. Our third task is going to be named remove wallpaper. And that task has a duration of 2 days. So I'm going to just put in the number 2. Notice the duration and the differing duration showing on the Gantt chart portion of the screen. We have a few more tasks we're going to enter now. The next task is add network drops. And that task has a duration of 2. Paint walls has a duration of 3. Add new flooring has a duration of 2.5, so 2.5 days. And the last task we're going to add for right now is add new lighting. And that has a duration of 2 days. Go ahead and save your project plan file. Another way that you can add tasks to your list is by importing them from other programs. As a matter of fact, if we had an Excel file with an entire task list in it, we could use a template in Project to start a new project plan by importing those tasks in from Excel. And you would be able to find that on the File tab of the ribbon. If you go to New, you'll see that template, New from Excel Workbook. Since we're not looking to create a new project plan file, but use our existing one, we're not going to use that option. we're simply going to copy and paste from Excel into project. So that finishing phase task Excel file that's in the video description, I'm going to just bring it up on the screen, and you should go ahead and open it. And you'll see it just has 3 tasks in it. Instead of typing these into project, we're going to just select the 3 tasks and their durations. We're not selecting the header. And I'm going to do Control C to copy. And I'm going to switch back over to my project plan file. And I'm underneath the Add New Lighting task name. And I'm going to just do Control V, as in Victor, to paste in those 3 tasks from Excel. So again, you may have been collaborating with that Excel file to get tasks ready, and now you don't want to have to retype them. That's redundancy, lends itself to errors, so you can just copy and paste them in from Excel. Again, if you wanted to create an entire project plan file based on an Excel file, you would do File, New, and go to the Import from Excel template. Go ahead and save your project plan. Before we get into creating our work breakdown structure, we're going to add some ancillary tasks, and we're also going to use some placeholder text, which is possible when you're working in manually scheduled mode. So let's start with the placeholder text first. We look at our list of tasks and we realize that we're not certain that the remove furniture task is 4 days in duration. The admin that's been working with the people who are going to remove the furniture has that information. So I'm going to click on the 4 days duration, and I'm going to click again to activate that information. And I'm going to just take out 4 days, and I'm going to type Ask Kathy and press enter. So I'm going to talk to Kathy, and when I confirm what the duration of that task is, I will update it later on before we change this to auto-scheduled mode. Again, you can only use placeholder text in the duration, start, and finish fields when you're in manually scheduled mode. The next thing we want to do is we want to start setting up for our work breakdown structure. So we want to add some summary tasks. There are basically 2 types of tasks in project. There are summary tasks and there are subtasks. Summary tasks contain subtasks, and it lends itself to your work breakdown structure, as you'll see in a little while. For right now, what that means is we're going to insert 3 more tasks. So we want a summary task above task 1, and notice the row numbers here. So I'm going to right click on row heading 1 and choose Insert Task. The new task name is going to be Tear Down Phase. So I'm going to just type Tear Down Phase and press Enter. We're also going to want to add a summary task for the construction phase of the project, and that's going to be above task 5, which is Add Network Drops. So right-click on row heading 5, Insert Task, and name the new task Construction Phase and press Enter. One more is the finishing phase summary task, and that goes right above Move in New Furniture, which is task 10. So right-click, row heading 10, Insert Task, and it's called Finishing Phase. And press Enter. Go ahead and save your plan file. Another type of task that we want to add is a recurring task. We can't add a recurring task by using the right-click Insert Task method that we just did. And when you're adding recurring tasks, like say you're going to have weekly meetings about the project or bi-weekly meetings, whatever the time frame is, You want to add them at the top of your project plan file so they're not interspersed with your other tasks, which are in the order that they need to happen in. So I'm going to just click on the tear down phase task. And for this one, we need to go to the task tab of the ribbon. On the task tab of the ribbon, you have an insert group with a task drop down. And we want to click the drop down arrow for task. And that's how you could create a recurring task. So it opens the recurring task information dialog box. And we're going to call this biweekly status meeting. A word of caution here. Recurring tasks default to a duration of 1 day. We don't want this as just a status meeting. We're not going to be in an all-day meeting. So we're going to go over to the duration and change the D to an H, which represents hours. And you don't want to press enter or you'll get the error message because we haven't completed the recurring pattern. So we're going to say that this recurrence pattern, we'll leave it on weekly. It's going to occur every week, every 1 week on Monday. So you have to give it a day of the week. And we'll just have it end by whatever date is in there, right? And when we change this to auto scheduled and it gives us the finish date, it will keep repeating for the finish date all the way through the finish date. So we're going to just do OK. And you'll see that our biweekly status meeting shows up in bold. And you can collapse it. And it only has one instance of the meeting, of the actual meeting for 1 hour, which would be on the start date of the project because we don't have any finish dates in right now. So we can just collapse biweekly status meeting if we don't want to see the one instance of the meeting before it. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to add 2 milestone tasks to our project plan. A milestone task is a task with 0 duration. It just marks a milestone in your project plan file. No work is being done on a milestone task. And you'll see how it's represented in the Gantt chart once we add them. So right above, and we can use our right-click method, we're going to right-click on row heading 1 and choose Insert Task. And the new task is going to just be called Start Remodel. And give it a duration of 0. And press Enter. So you'll notice on the Gantt chart, a 0 duration task, a milestone task, is represented by a diamond shape on the Gantt chart. And it has the date corresponding to it next to the diamond. We're going to add another milestone task. So after your last task, just click in the task name box and type End Remodel and give it a duration of 0 days. And go ahead and save your project plan. Now that we have our task list pretty well developed, we're going to replace our placeholder text for remove furniture from Ask Kathy. So the scenario here is we spoke to Kathy and she confirmed that it is going to be a 4-day task. So go ahead and change the duration of the remove furniture task back to 4 days. And now we want to switch this whole thing to auto schedule. So we don't want to use the drop down in the status bar. That just tells you how new tasks will be scheduled. We want to switch our existing task list to auto schedule. So project will take care of the schedule from now on. And after we do this, we'll be ready to set up our work breakdown structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag the row headings and select every task. And on the task tab of the ribbon, In the task group, I'm going to go ahead and click on the auto schedule button. So you'll notice the icon for all of the tasks have changed, except for our status meeting. That was already automatically scheduled. Recurring tasks are automatically auto-scheduled. So now we have in the task mode column, we have the icon that represents auto-scheduled. A couple of other things have happened here. For our durations, our 1-day duration task, it put 1 day and a question mark, which means it's estimated. It also populated the start and the finish dates, and I'm just expanding the width of those columns. And everything right now begins on the project start date of November 1st. And we know that's not realistic. But once we switch it to auto schedule, it takes the start date and it puts it in as the first day of the project. You'll see how that changes as we apply our work breakdown structure. So to do that, we need to make it look like there's a difference between the tasks, between our summary tasks, our phase tasks, and our subtasks. So what you're going to do is you're going to select 3 tasks. You're going to just click and drag, remove furniture, knock out middle wall, and remove wallpaper. And on the task tab of the ribbon, in the schedule group, you're going to see 2 different icons, one of which is outdent task and the other one is indent task. And I'm going to just draw an arrow to the indent task button so you can see which one we're going to be using here. What we need to do in order to create the hierarchical structure is we need to indent the subtasks so they flow underneath their summary task. Go ahead and click your indent task button, and you'll notice a couple of changes. First of all, the tear down phase is now bold and it's collapsible. It gets its duration, start, and finish dates from the 3 subtasks underneath it. So 4 days. Remove furniture takes 4 days. The other tasks take 1 day and 2 days, respectively. So the entire length of that phase is 4 days. And that means the start and finish dates are different. So starts on the 1st, finishes on the 4th. Now we're going to indent tasks under our construction phase. So just select tasks 9 through 12 and go ahead and click your indent tasks button. And we're going to select tasks 14, 15, and 16 and indent those as those are the subtasks of the finishing phase. Now let's take a look at the changes on your Gantt chart based on what we just did. So your summary tasks, your phase tasks, show up on the Gantt chart as like a bracket with its subtasks underneath it. So you have your bracketed tasks, those are your summary tasks. The width of the bracket is the duration of the task, and the subtasks for each summary tasks are underneath them. Also, since we switched to auto schedule, the color of the bars on the Gantt chart is a little bit deeper color. It's a bluish color, whereas the original color when you're in manually scheduled mode is like the teal color that's still representing the biweekly status meeting. So you'll see that the chart changes depending on what mode you're in as well. Before we get into defining our task relationships in our project plan file, let's go over some terminology and including the types of relationships that you can create between tasks in Microsoft Project. So a predecessor task is a task that executes before another task. A successor task is a task that executes after another task. In our project plan file, our first two tasks under the tear down phase are remove furniture and knock out middle wall. Remove furniture is the predecessor task that has to happen before the successor task of knock out middle wall happens. Now, the four types of relationships between task and project are finish to start, also represented by an FS. The successor task cannot start until the predecessor task has finished. So knocking out the middle wall, work can't start on that task until the furniture task, removing the furniture task, has been completed. That is the default type of relationship in Microsoft Project. So when you create a relationship between tasks, it defaults to finish to start. A start to start relationship means the successor task cannot start until the predecessor task has started. This type of relationship can be used later on when work starts on your project. If you find yourself in a situation where you're not going to make your finish date, you can use the start to start relationship by reviewing your task list and figuring out which task can start on the same day. And that gains you more time in your schedule. So start to start is often used to crash your schedule when you need to gain more time so you actually can try to make your finish date. You have a finish to finish relationship type where the successor task can't finish until the predecessor task has finished. So they finish at the same time. Basically, that one is what that means. And then you have start to finish. This is used very rarely. The successor task cannot finish until the predecessor task has started. So typically, when you have a highly sequential task list, like we have, you won't ever need to use the start to finish relationship. Two other terms and relationship related things you need to know about is the concept of lag time and lead time. So lag time is the amount of time that passes before a successor task starts. So we have a task in our construction phase called paint walls. I believe it's like a 3-day task. We need another day after the last day of painting to make sure the walls are dry before the next task can start. We don't want to make paint walls a 4-day task because then the project will be charged for 4 days of resources that are not working while we're waiting for the paint to dry. So that's where lag time comes in. It says when the previous task is finished, wait this long before the next task starts, regardless of the type of relationship. Then you have lead time, which is another method that's used to crash your schedule to gain more time in your project schedule. Lead time is the amount of overlap between a predecessor finishing and a successor starting. So let's say that maybe when, I'm just looking through the task list now, maybe when the wallpaper is being removed, when that's 50% done, then the construction phase can start and they can get in there and start adding the network drops. That would be an example of lead time. And you'll see how this plays out in the next exercise that we do. Now that we've reviewed all the terminology and the 4 types of relationships that you can create in project, we're going to go ahead and set up those relationships. So what we want to do is we're going to select tasks 5, 6, and 7. And on the task tab of the ribbon, in the schedule group, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the link task icon. And a few things happened. First of all, look at your predecessors column in your entry table. So it's showing the predecessor for those tasks. Well, for task 6 and 7. Task 5 is the predecessor for task 6, and task 6 is the predecessor for task 7. Also, in your Gantt chart, you'll see the relationship line, and it's indicative of the type of relationship it is. So remember, the default relationship type is finish to start. And so that line is coming out of the end of task 5 and going into the arrows pointing to the beginning of task 6. When task 5 finishes, task 6 can start. When task 6 finishes, task 7 can start. So the line will change depending on the type of relationship on your Gantt chart. Now we're going to set up the other relationships. So let's drag and select tasks 9 through 12, and then hold down your control key and select tasks 14, 15, and 16. So you have all of those tasks selected. You're going to go back up to the task tab in the schedule group and click on link the tasks button. And so you can look at your Gantt chart and see the other links that are there as well. Now you can also link summary tasks. So when the tear down phase finishes, the construction phase starts. When the construction phase finishes, the finishing phase will start. So let's select task 4 and holding down control, click on task 8 and then click on task 13 and go ahead and link those tasks. So right now, all of our summary tasks are linked to each other. When the tear down phase finishes, the construction phase will start. The default relationship type that we're using right now is finish to start. So we're not changing the relationship type at this point. And you can see the updates on your Gantt chart as well. You'll notice some blue shading in the entry table. Anytime you do anything in project that causes other fields to update and change, they will be blue shaded until you save the file or make another change. So your start and finish dates updated based on the types of relationships. And the entirety has been rolled up to each of your summary phase tasks. So let's take a look at this. Let's look at the tear down phase. It's now 7 days in duration. If remove furniture takes 4 days and it's in a finish to start relationship with knockout middle wall, then remove furniture is going to start on Monday the 1st and end on Thursday the 4th. Knockout middle wall cannot start until Friday the 5th. It's a 1-day task, so it starts and ends on the same day. And remove wallpaper can't start until knocking out the middle wall is finished. And so since knockout middle wall is ending on a Friday, remember, project skips Saturdays and Sundays. Remove wallpaper will start on Monday the 8th. So all of your summary tasks get their information from their subtasks. And now it looks a little bit different than when it was manually scheduled. The tear down phase is a total of 7 days, 4 days, 1 day, and 2 day. Construction phase, 9.5 days. And it gives you the phase start and end dates as well. When you set up your relationships and when you're in auto schedule mode, it gives project the ability to schedule your tasks. So your project plan is being scheduled, it's being controlled by Microsoft Project right now, based on the relationships we just set up. The last thing we're going to do is we want to show our work breakdown structure numbers. There's a coding system. It's known worldwide in project management, work breakdown structure. And we're going to insert the codes. It gives a numeric listing of the codes for tasks. Oftentimes in meetings, the codes are referenced and not the name of the task. So we're going to go to the Gantt chart format tab on the ribbon. And on that tab, over to the right in the Show Hide group, you'll see 3 checkboxes. Now, summary tasks are already showing, right? And so we don't have to do anything with that. But we want to see outline numbers, and those would be your work breakdown structure numbers. Go ahead and check the box for outline number. And now you'll notice in the task name column, and I'm going to double click between task name and duration just to expand that column width so I can see the full task name. And you'll see, if you look at task 3, the teardown phase, right? It's assigned numbers to each task. Task 3 is the teardown phase. That's the summary task, and its subtasks are 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, etc. So if you expand your biweekly status meetings, which is task 2, we have the 2.1 biweekly status meeting. So the thing is that if you were to insert more tasks, the work breakdown structure codes would automatically update. If you delete a task, they will update. No worries on that. Once you have them in there, they're in there unless you go and uncheck outline number. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to check the box in the same Show Hide group for project summary task. And that gives us what I call task 0. It's the entire project. So we named the file Learnit Remodel Project. It's a duration of 20 days. It's starting on Monday, November 1st, and ending, scheduled to finish on Tuesday, November 30th. So that's a quick at a glance for you about the duration, start, and finish dates of your project. Go ahead and save your plan file. Before we move into the next lesson, we're going to do a couple of quick fixes in our task list. We want to change the date for the end remodel milestone task, task 17. We're going to change the date of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just double click on end remodel. When you double click on a task, it opens up the task information dialog box. We're going to just go to the finish date drop down and select November 30th and click OK. So it moves the diamond down on the Gantt chart. It moves it to the right to November 30th. The other thing we're going to need to do, it didn't update automatically, which kind of surprises me, but we can fix it manually easy enough. Let's double click task 2, which is our biweekly status meeting, to get back into the recurring task information box, and tell it to end by November 30th as well. That one normally updates. Go ahead and click OK. And so now you'll notice that it added more incidents of that biweekly status meeting, right? And it gave them work breakdown structure codes. So every incident's an hour meeting, so it shows kind of weird looking on the Gantt chart, but you'll get used to that. And I'm going to just go ahead and collapse that biweekly status meeting. And by the way, you can collapse your phase tasks as well. That's particularly useful when work has begun on the project. Let's say the teardown phase is completed. I no longer need to see those tasks, so I can just collapse that phase. Go ahead and save your file. And we're getting ready to move into our next lesson. In lesson 4, we're going to switch our focus from our task list to managing project plan resources. So we're going to add resources to our project plan file, create a resource calendar which notes exceptions for a resource. We're going to enter some resource costs, assign resources to tasks, and we'll end up by resolving resource conflicts, which is very important in Microsoft Project. In Project, you could simply type resource information in the resource names column in your entry table, but that is not the preferred method of working with resources in Project. We're going to use our view indicator on the left, where it currently says Gantt chart, to switch to resource sheet view, which is where we're going to input our resource information. So go ahead and right-click on your view indicator and select Resource Sheet. Before we start working in Resource Sheet view, we'll go over the different columns of information that you could supply here. The resource name column can be the name of the resource or the position of the resource. If you're going to have multiple of the same type of resources in a position like contractors, I'll show you how to handle that in the resource sheet view as well. So you can put in the name of the resource if you know it, or you can put in the position of a resource like designer, for example, if you're not certain of who the actual person is going to be. The type, there are 3 different types of resources available in project. Work resources are people or equipment. Material resources are consumable resources, for example, paper, concrete, etc. And you have a type of resource called a cost resource, which is used for expenses. The material field is the measurement of material resource. So if you're using paper on your project, paper is measured in reams. The initials field will auto-populate with the first letter of the resource name. The group is like a free field. You can use it for anything, and it can be included on reports. Maximum units field is the percentage of time a resource is available to work on your project. So let's say you have somebody that's going to be working on your project half of their work time. Their maximum units would be 50%. Project wouldn't schedule them for more than that amount of time on your project. The standard rate is the standard pay rate of the resource. You can input a rate, an hourly rate, daily, weekly, monthly, etc. Overtime would be the overtime pay rate of a work resource. Project will never switch to the overtime rate. It's something you would have to do in order for project to recognize it. The cost per use field is used to indicate a flat rate every time a resource is used. The accrue field is the cost accrual method. So it defaults to prorated, but your choices are start, so the cost for the resource would accrue when a task begins. Prorated, the costs accrue over the duration of the task. And end, the cost would accrue when the task is completed. The base field indicates the resource calendar that's being used. Typically, resources are using your project calendar. Unless you need to make an exception for a resource, then project will automatically create a resource calendar based off of the project calendar attached to your plan. And the code field is another free field that can be used for anything and can also be included on reports. Now we're ready to start entering resources. So let's click in the first resource name field, and we're going to type designer. Now I use my tab key to go from field to field in here. When I tab over to type, a few things happened. It defaults to a work resource, which the designer is. It populates the initials with the first letter of the resource name. It sets the maximum units to 100%, and it puts in the 0 for the standard rate per hour and overtime rate per hour. The cost per use is also populated with 0. The default accrual method, prorated, is there. And the base calendar is the remodel project calendar that we created and attached to our project. So we just need to fill in the rest of the information. For the designer, we're not going to put them in a group. We're going to leave that empty. We're going to just go over to standard rate. So I'm going to navigate over to standard rate. And the designer's rate is 200. And then you have to type a slash and the letter H to indicate hour. And you can press enter. We're not going to put in any overtime rates or fill in any of the other fields. Don't need to. Let's go to the second resource name cell. And this one is contractors, plural. They're also a work resource, so when you tab over, you'll see that. What we want to change for the contractors, we actually have 3 contractors that are going to do work on this project. We don't need to list them as separate line items. We're going to change the max units to 300, which represents 3 people available 100% of their time each to this project. And the standard rate for those contractors is the same, and that is 50/H for hour. We're only going to end up adding 7 resources here, so it's not going to take too long. We have our designer, we have our contractors. We're going to have a network tech, and we're just doing it by position instead of name at this point, which is fine. Now, once the project is up and running, or right before it starts, when you know the name of the person, you can come back in here and put it in for the designer and the network tech, and it will update to whatever task that person has been assigned to. So the network tech is also a work resource, and their rate is $50 an hour, standard rate. So go ahead and get that in there. Our next resource after the network tech, we're going to have an electrician, also a work resource. And all of these resources are available 100% of their time to work on this project. So we don't have to change the maximum units anymore. It defaults to 100%. We're going to give the electrician an hourly rate of $125. So go ahead and get that input. Have a few more. The next one is just called travel. So the designer may have to travel for this project. And travel, when you tab over to type the letter C, and it will populate with cost resource. So a cost resource is like expenses. You assign the amount of the expense at the task level, so you don't put in any numbers on this screen for a cost resource. We're going to go ahead and add our 6th resource, and that is going to be Painter 1, just generic Painter 1, another work resource. And that person, Painter 1, is going to get $40 an hour as their rate. The last one we're going to add is Painter 2, another work resource, and their rate is $30 an hour. If they had the same rate, I might just put them as painters on one line item with a 200% max units. But since they have differing rates, got to put them as separate line items. And now we're ready to go ahead and save our project plan file. And if we want to switch back to our Gantt chart view, we can. You actually have 2 choices. You can use your view indicator, or there's Gantt chart right on the ribbon. We're not quite ready to switch back to our Gantt chart view. We have a little bit more stuff we need to do with our resources. We have to make note of the fact that the electrician is not available to work on our project from the Friday before Thanksgiving until the Monday afterwards. So we have to create a resource calendar to actually note that exception for the electrician. To do that, we're going to double click the electrician resource name. And just like when you double click a task information dialog opens. When you double click a resource information dialog opens. We're going to go over to the right side and click on Change Working Time. Notice that the base calendar at the top, it says Resource Calendar for Electrician, and the base calendar is our remodel project calendar. So every resource is using the same project calendar, meaning that weekends and Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving, no one will be scheduled for work. But the electrician has other exceptions. So we're going to do this the same way that we did when we created our calendar and put exceptions on it. We're going to scroll to November, and we are going to click on November 19th, and go down to the name box in the exceptions area. And we're going to type not available. And then press your tab key so it populates the start and the finish date. Now go over to the finish date and do the drop down. And he's not available through the 26th, meaning he'll be available again on the 29th. So that's the range of dates that our electrician is not available. So project won't schedule them for any work during that time frame. And now we're going to click OK. And so it just goes back to the resource information box, and we're going to click OK again to cancel that box. Now, the base calendar in resource sheet view will never say electrician calendar. It's always going to be the calendar that's attached to your project. By making an exception for the electrician, it created the electrician's resource calendar in the background. Now that we have our resources all set up, we're ready to start adding resources to tasks. So we're going to switch back to Gantt chart view. Again, you can use the button on the task tab of the ribbon, or you can use your view indicator on the left to go back to Gantt chart view. And we want to make sure that the area is expanded. So in the entry table, you can see all of the columns. You can drag that divider bar. You definitely want to be able to see through the resource name column. And let's expand our biweekly status meeting. So when you have a recurring meeting like this, you're going to want to assign the resources that have to attend the meeting to each individual occurrence of the meeting. So in our case, the designer and the contractors need to attend our status meetings. So for the first instance, so you're not going to do the one that looks like a summary task, the one that's in bold and collapsible. We're dealing with the individual instances. And so the first individual one, biweekly status meeting 1, we're going to go right to the resource name column, do the drop down, and do a check mark in front of contractors and designer. And if you want to pause the video and do the same for the other occurrences of that meeting, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I get it populated. So we're just assigning contractors and designer to each of our biweekly meetings for the life of the project. And then after we're done making those assignments, you'll notice that whoever's assigned to a task also shows up on the Gantt chart. So just always pointing out what changes on the Gantt chart when you're doing things. I'm going to go ahead and collapse the biweekly status meeting. Don't need to see it anymore since I have my assignments done. And I'm going to expand my tear down phase. For the task assignments here, we're going to assign mostly to contractors, except for task 3.1, which is going to be the contractors and the designer. So I'm going to go right to resource names, and I'm going to put in contractors and designer for the 3.1. And then for 3.2 and 3.3, it's only going to be the contractors. Go ahead and make those assignments. For your construction phase, the first task, 4.1, you're going to assign the network technician to that task, the network tech. For the second one, you're going to add the painter, painter 1 and painter 2. For 4.3, it's going to be contractors. And for 4.4, we're going to assign the electrician. And notice what happened as soon as we assigned the electrician. The date switched. So you have your blue shading, the entire construction phase, the finish date has changed and it's now 13 days. Because the electrician is not available to start that task while they're not available to work on the project. So it pushed it out until the electrician is back and able to work on it. And that because of the relationships, it pushed back all of the finishing phase tasks as well. So now where our project once ended on November 30th, if you look at task 0, it's now going to end on December 6th. Go ahead and save your file. Now, because of that, we're probably going to want to change the end remodel date. So go ahead and double click your last task, end remodel, and change the finish date of that to December 6th, since we've pushed out the project because of the electrician's availability. Now we just have to assign the resources for the finishing phase. So we're going to assign the designer and contractors to all 3 of those finishing phase tasks. And so we have one more assignment we want to do. We said that we set up a expense bucket for travel, a cost resource, and the designer is going to, we already know their airfare. This is the scenario I'm making up off the top of my head. So we're going to go ahead and put that in, and we're going to apply it to the first task in the tear down phase. So let's click on that remove furniture task first. And what we're going to want to do is we want to go to the resource tab on the ribbon. And the second button is assign resources. I usually do it from the resource name column unless there is a cost resource. So I'm going to click on assign resources. And notice it is looking at the remove furniture task because we selected it before we came in here. So now we just need to add the travel cost. Remember, a cost resource, you put the cost in at the task level. So we're going to capture the airfare here. Probably in the finishing phase, we'll capture the hotel bill and the meals and stuff like that, rent a car for the designer. But for right now, we just want to capture the airfare. So we are going to go down and click on travel. And over to the right, we're going to put in a cost. We'll say the airfare was $500. And then you're going to click the assign button. So that's how you assign a monetary value to a cost resource. And we're going to go ahead and close the assign resources box. And if we look at the Gantt bar for that, it shows that the contractors and a designer are assigned to that task. And $500 of the travel expense cost resource is assigned to that task as well. Our final step in this lesson is to resolve resource conflicts. Before we do that, let's change each instance of our biweekly status meeting, 1 through 5, to auto-scheduled. So I'm going to just click and drag on those individual instances, not the bolded one. And on the task tab of the ribbon in the task group, we're going to go ahead and click the auto schedule button, just so that those meetings are now being controlled by project. Now, if you notice in your indicators column, we have the circular arrow, which indicates a recurring task. And now next to each biweekly status meeting, we have a little calendar icon, and when you hover over it, it lets you know that it applied a constraint, that this particular task has a start no earlier than constraint for November 1st. It also has overallocated resources, which we're going to deal with now. If you notice, there's also overallocated resources on task 3.1, remove furniture. In the indicators column, The little red person indicates that there's a resource over allocation. And what that means is the resource was given too much work on one day outside of the, 8 to 5, 1 hour break for lunch. So they're over allocated. And as someone that's managing the project plan, you have to make decisions about that. So let's explore the over allocation on the remove furniture task. And one way we can do it is we can go to a different view and look at it. So we're going to use our view indicator and go to resource usage view. And in this view, the over allocation shows like the little red person in the indicators column, but it also highlights the resource name that is over allocated and their work hours in red. So what we need to do, this area of the screen in the middle is known as a time phase grid. And if you look toward the top of it, you'll notice that it's set back in September. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the scroll bar on that side of the screen to scroll over to October or November, and we'll start seeing the hours per day per resource. And for each resource, you have their tasks listed underneath them. We'll notice that on November 1st, and it's in red in the time phase grid, it shows 9 hours for the designer. So we have a 1 hour overage. And if you wanted to manually fix it, you would have to, in the details column on the time phase grid, you can right click on work and choose over allocation. So now you have work and the over allocation rows. So the designer has 9 hours of work on November 1st and 1 hour of over allocation. To manually fix it, you would have to change the 9 hours on November 1st to 8 hours, and then you would have to find the next available space for the designer where you can put in that 1 hour to make it up. Now, the thing about that is you would also need to look at that resource calendar, because the worst thing you can do is put that hour on a day when they're not scheduled to work at all. The easier solution is to let project fix your over allocated resources. The process is known as leveling. Let's go back to Gantt chart view. You can use your view indicator, or you can use the Gantt chart button up there on the task tab. And we're going to let project fix this issue for us. If project fixes it and we're not happy with its results, we can undo what project does and then manually fix it. You would want to use manual fixing as a last resort. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the resource tab on the ribbon, and you have an entire leveling group on the resource tab. In that leveling group, you have multiple choices. You can level a particular resource. You can level the entire project. If you have multiple resources with over allocations, you can do that. You also have leveling options which you can explore. And if you let project level the project for you and you're not happy with it, you would just come back here and select clear leveling, and it would take it back to the over allocations and everything as if project hadn't done anything. Let's choose level all in that group, and it did it. So click on clear leveling, and we're going to do okay. We want to clear leveling for the entire project. And so now our little red people appear again. So it's as if project didn't fix it. Now, when I say whether you like project fixing it, that means specifically, sometimes when it's leveling, project can push out your project finish date to an intolerable date. Let's go ahead and click level all again. Right now, our finish date is December 6th. Click level all. It did not push out our finish date, so we're happy with projects leveling and we no longer have resource over allocations. Save your project file. Our last lesson in this course is finalizing a project plan. In this lesson, you'll learn how to optimize a project plan, and we'll drill into what that means in just a moment. How to set a baseline, which is critical for comparing what your plan is to what actually happens when work starts on the project, and how to share a project plan. We're going to start by optimizing our project plan file. And what that means specifically is we will add task notes for clarity. We'll add fixed costs if necessary. Add resources to tasks as necessary if we want the task to be completed sooner and if it's feasible. We're going to review task relationships and see where we can have some overlap or have tasks start on the same date. And we'll update durations as needed. Before finalizing our plan, we look at it and we realize that we have tasks that are scheduled in a finish to start relationship that can actually start at the same time. And that would be tasks 3.2 and 3.3, knocking out the middle wall and removing the wallpaper. So in order to change the type of relationship, we're going to do a double click on task 3.3, and that's by its WBS number. It's row number 11. So the successor task between those two tasks. And we're going to go to the predecessors tab in the task information dialog box. And to the right, you'll see under type, it's a finish to start relationship. We're going to click there, do the drop down, and select start to start. And click OK. So now right-click on that Remove Wallpaper task and choose Scroll to Task. So it brings the taskbar into view on the Gantt chart. And you'll now see that the arrow, the beginning of the line, is coming out of the beginning of the previous task, the predecessor task, and going into the beginning of the successor task, which represents a start-to-start relationship. So they can start at the same time. Then we noticed for task 4.2, row 14, we need to allow a day for the paint to dry before the next task, Add New Flooring, starts. So what we're going to do is we're going to double-click the Add New Flooring task and go, if necessary, to the Predecessors tab. And that's where lag time comes in. So from task information, you can change the type of relationship and you can add lag or lead time. There is no lead column. So we're going to add lag time for this task, and then we'll add lead time on another task so you see how they're handled differently. Lag time is normally entered, it's always entered as positive number and the amount of the duration, or it could be a percentage. So we want 1 day lag. So I'm going to just click in the lag column and use my spinner to make it say 1 day and click OK. So that means when the painting task is finished, there'll be 1 day of lag. So we don't want to make the paint walls task 4 days because then we'll be getting resource costs charged for 4 days. It's a 3-day task. So there's going to be a 1 day delay before the successor task starts. And if you look in the predecessors column, now you'll see it's the predecessor task for Add New Flooring. It's task 14. It's finished to start plus 1 day. Now, normally it just gives the number. If it's finished to start, you'll never see an FS unless you do lag or lead. And by the way, the one that we made a start to start says SS in the predecessor column. If we look at the paint walls Gantt chart bar, we'll see that the arrow coming out of it actually goes across a day before it starts the next task. So it's represented on the Gantt chart as well. And in consultation with our resources, we realize that adding the fish tank can happen when hanging paintings is 50% done. So we're going to go ahead and add lead time on the add fish tank task. So we're going to double click it to get into task information. And we're using the lag field. The way that project knows its lag versus lead is lead time is typically entered as a percentage. It could be a duration, but it's always entered as a negative. So in the hang paintings lag box, we're going to type in negative 50%. Representing lead time. So add fish tank can get started when hang paintings is 50% done. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And you'll notice in the predecessors column for add fish tank, it's showing its predecessor, it's finished to start minus 50%. And if you look at the Gantt bar, I'm going to just right click on add fish tank and scroll to task. You'll see that the beginning of add fish tank is halfway underneath the bar above it, the hang paintings, representing the lead time. Now, because we did that, we got our little red people showing up in the indicators column again. So let's go ahead and go back to our resource tab on the ribbon and level all. The next scenario we're going to address is adding more resources to particular tasks. It would be a situation where the current resources may say to you, you know, we think we could use another person working with us on these tasks. We're not certain we'll be able to get it complete on time if we don't have another person. So we're going to add an additional resource to tasks 5.2 and 5.3. And we're going to use the resource names column to do it. So I'm going to just click for task 5.2. I'm going to click the resource names and access the drop down. And it turns out that Painter 2 is available and able to help with these tasks. So we're going to go ahead and check the box for Painter 2. Click away from it. Now you'll notice you get this warning symbol to the left of the resource name column. This only happens when after your initial resource assignments, if you go back and add or remove resources, which is the situation we're in. It gives you choices on what to do. Click the warning symbol, and what we want to do is reduce the duration but keep the same amount of work. The default choice here is increase the amount of work but keep the same duration. So we want to reduce the duration but keep the same amount of work. That's our choice. And we select that and the warning symbol disappears. You're going to do the same thing for task 5.3. You're going to add Painter 2 to that task. And make sure that you select the same option, reduce duration, in the warning box. We've got over allocations again. We may as well go ahead and level this for the last time. So we're going to do level all on the resource tab and save your file. There are times when you'll want to make notes at the task level about decisions you've made or things you've done, so you'll remember if you have to report on them. Since we just added Painter 2 to 2 tasks at the request of the current resources, we're going to make a note of that. So we're going to double click the Hang Paintings task to get back into task information. And we're going to go to the Notes tab. It is suggested, but not required, that you date and initial the note. So anyone else that has access to this file can know who put the note in and when the note was put in. So I'm going to just go ahead and type today's date and a dash in my initials. And I'm going to just type painter 2 added at request of current resources. And so I don't have to do another note. I'll do also added to task 5.3. And then I'll click OK. If you look in your indicators column, you now have the note icon. And when you hover over it, you'll see the content of the note. To delete the note, you'd have to double click, go back in, select everything, and press delete on your keyboard. The last thing we're going to do before moving on to setting a baseline, and this also comes under the heading of optimization, is we never accounted for the cost of the fish tank that we're adding. That is known as a fixed cost. It costs what it costs, and that's it. We can't capture it anywhere other than in the fixed cost column. So the fixed cost column resides in another table, and we don't have to switch to another table to access that column. We're going to just add it to this entry table. So what you're going to do is you're going to right click on the duration column heading and choose insert column. Type FIX, and fixed cost is showing up on the list. It's highlighted. So I'm going to just press enter, and it adds that column here. So for the add fish tank fixed cost, we're going to just go to that field and put in $550 and press enter. Now we can keep that column in this table if we need to. If we don't, we can get rid of it. So right click on the fixed cost column heading, and in Microsoft Project, hide column really means delete column. You can always reinsert it, but hiding it is not hiding it like in Excel where you can unhide it. And notice it has the red X symbol on the icon. Go ahead and click hide column. Now, just to show you that that field is populated in the table in which it normally resides in, we're going to switch to that table. Go to the View tab on the ribbon, and in the Data group, you will see the Tables drop-down. You're going to access the Tables drop-down, and you're going to select the Cost table. So you're still in Gantt chart view, but you're looking at the Cost table now instead of the Entry table. And you'll notice that the fixed cost for your fish tank task is in there. You can also see the other columns in this table, total cost. So right now, our total project cost would be $22,206.67 as of right now. And this is our plan. So remember, no work has started on the project. This is just what we're planning. We're going to go back to the tables drop-down, go back to your entry table, and save your file. Setting a baseline is very critical for you to be able to track the progress of your project plan. Right now, we created a project plan file. No work has started on the project, and a baseline is like a snapshot of what our plan is, so that when work starts on the project and we actually start updating our project plan file based on the work that's happening, that process is known as tracking actuals, you'll be able to compare your progress based on the comparison of where you are currently in your plan and the baseline that you set before work began. So the last thing you really want to be able to do when you have your project plan optimized and as together as it can be before work is done is set a baseline. The baseline captures the planned start and finish dates of every task, their durations, the amount of work, and cost estimates. And you can save up to 11 baselines per project plan file That may sound extreme, but there are some instances when that's really useful. Some people like to set a baseline for every phase of the project. So our project has 3 phases. Long multi-year projects, you'll typically see multiple baselines. Like if you complete the first year of a 5-year project and you're so far off from what your original plan was, you might want to set another baseline there so you can compare future years to where you are at the end of the first year instead of where you are at the end of the first year compared to your original plan, which got really askew during the course of the first year of the project. So we're going to go ahead and set our baseline for this project plan file now. We'll be working on the project tab of the ribbon. So you can navigate to that tab, and there's a schedule group toward the right side of that ribbon tab. In the schedule group, you'll see the set baseline icon, and we're going to go ahead and click on it. And then we're going to choose set baseline. And by the way, if you set a baseline and then you make a whole bunch of changes to your plan file, you can go and clear that baseline and then reset it. So we're setting a baseline. Where it says baseline, if you do the drop down, you'll see how you could potentially have up to 11 in one plan file. We're going to keep it on baseline. We're doing it for the entire project as opposed to just for selected tasks. And we're going to click OK. So it doesn't look like anything has happened. Well, we can tell whether the baseline is set 2 different ways. Let's go back to set baseline. And when you get in there, under set baseline, it tells you the baseline and when it was last saved. So that means that one is set. We can cancel. And remember the project information dialog box from earlier in the course? We added it to our quick access toolbar. Click on that. And in the lower left, you'll see a statistics button. Click that button. So you'll see start and finish dates, duration, work, and cost for both where you currently are in your project plan file and the baseline, and they're exactly the same because we haven't tracked any actuals and done any work in this project yet. So this is another reason why I like having project information on my quick access toolbar. In the middle of a project, I can always click on the statistics and see how I'm doing. We're going to go ahead and close that. Save your project plan file. Once we start tracking actuals in the Project 2019 Advanced course, we'll revisit our project information statistics to see how we're doing compared to the baseline that we set. In the meantime, there are multiple ways that you can share your plan file before work begins on the project. One of the ways is simply by printing your Gantt chart view. So we can go to the File tab, and we can click on Print. And you'll see that it comes up, there's 2 pages, and it has a legend at the bottom of each page so that if you print this out and distribute it to your team, everybody will know what the legend means and understand what they're looking at. I'm going to just do the multiple pages button so I can see both pages at the same time. So it's really just printing what's on the screen right now. I'm not going to actually print, but that might be useful for you to distribute in a meeting when you're talking about the project before work begins on it. I'm going to just do the back button to get out of print preview. And another way that you can share your plan is there's a view called Calendar View. So let's go to our view indicator on the left and right click and choose Calendar. Calendar view might be how some of your stakeholders want to see your project plan. This view can be printed as well. So I'm going to do Control P this time instead of File Print. Takes me to the same place, Print Preview. And this is a 2-page view. I'm going to display multiple pages. Each page is a month. So you can actually see on the calendar grid the tasks and when they're happening in a calendar format. A lot of stakeholders seem to appreciate this. When I was actively project managing, I would have the calendar view printed out so I could quickly at a glance take a look and see what was supposed to be happening on any given day of the project. And I'm going to do the back button again. Another way that you can share your plan is by using the timeline. So when we started this, I said the default view is Gantt chart with timeline, and we're going to use the timeline now. I'm going to just go back to my view indicator and go back to Gantt chart view. And just like anything else in a Microsoft program, there's multiple ways of adding tasks to your timeline. The first thing is you want to click in your timeline to activate it. And then you'll notice that instead of a Gantt chart format tab at the end of your ribbon, you have a timeline format tab. And I'm going to just navigate to that tab. It's only there when the timeline is activated. I think the most efficient way of adding tasks to your timeline is by using the timeline format tab on the ribbon. Now, you get to make a decision. Do your stakeholders need to see all of the tasks, or are they just interested basically in task 0 and the phases? Let's say that they're interested in just your phases and task 0. So on the timeline format tab of the ribbon in the insert group, I'm going to click on existing tasks. And in the add task to timeline box, I can just put a check mark before the ones that I want to add to the timeline. So starting at the top, I'm going to check Learnit Remodel Project. That's task 0. That's your entire project at a glance. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to check Tear Down Phase, Construction Phase, and Finishing Phase, and click OK. So now those tasks are added to my timeline. Now I decide that I want the Learnit Remodel Project task 0, to show outside of the timeline. So in the timeline, I'm going to click on that Learnit Remodel Project task and then right click and choose Display as Callout. So it pops it outside of the timeline as a callout. And by the way, if you have this green band here, this is comparing what's showing in your Gantt chart. So right now, it's only showing through this date in the Gantt chart. If I put my mouse on the edge of that green band and click and hold, I can drag it to the right. So now it's encompassing the entire project instead of just that phase. So because I have my timeline populated with task 0 and my summary tasks or phase tasks, I can go ahead and use the copy timeline feature. And when I click on that, it gives me 3 choices for email. So if I wanted to email the timeline to a bunch of stakeholders, I could. For presentation, if everybody's going to be in a conference room and I have it in a PowerPoint, or full size. I'm going to do full size, and you don't see any impact because it just copied it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and launch Word. In Word, I'm going to go to the Layout tab of the ribbon and change the orientation to landscape. And then I'm going to just do Control V to paste, and it places my timeline in the Word document. I could resize the shape and all of that. I'll zoom out a little bit. You know, it's going off the page, but I could resize it, fix it, send it. Could have sent it by email, could have put it in a PowerPoint presentation. Sometimes stakeholders only want a high-level overview, and the timeline with the summary task provides them that. I'm not going to save this Word document. And in your project plan file, just go ahead and save. One other topic that I want to revisit just quickly. When we did the tour of project early in the course, I mentioned that the zoom slider in the lower right-hand corner doesn't function the way it does in other Office programs. To demonstrate this, I'm going to just right-click on the Remove Furniture task and scroll to Tasks to get my Gantt chart back in view. And then I'm going to go down to the lower right and I'm going to use the zoom slider and zoom. And notice it's not making the font any different. The only thing that's changing on the screen is the Gantt chart portion. And now I can't see, so there. So now it's showing years. Before it was showing days. So it's changing the time scale when you're using the zoom slider in Gantt chart view. To get it back to days instead of trying to slide it, I'm going to go to the View tab on the ribbon. And in the time scale, the zoom group, time scale is actually showing 5 years at a time. I'm going to do the drop down and choose days. And then I'll right click on Remove Furniture and scroll to Task again so you can see it looks the way that it originally did. Remember, you can play this video anytime you want to refresh. The PowerPoint that I've been showing you throughout the course is in the video description, so you have access to that as well.